I just want to lead off Freeplay with a question that I've had.
Okay. Yeah. So this is something a little bit different from when we were doing the recordings, in which we would just kind of close it down at this point. But what we do now is we go from we have kind of a direction with the creator interview, and now we're gonna.
What we do now is try to get our YouTube watch hours up without doing it. Shh, that's not what we're doing, but it is.
Yeah. Awesome. But now it's we can just talk about whatever.
Freeplay. I have a question.
Okay, there we go. It's Freeplay.
Have you ever read Doug Ernst's books?
This is the Soul Finder series.
The Soul Finder series? I don't think I have. It's not ringing a bell. So no.
Soul Finder.
Okay. All right. So I'll tell you what. I'm going to even turn my camera on.
Oh, I can tell Mike's grabbing something. You can hear the chair moving.
Oh, he accidentally just killed himself.
Yeah, so that's a glitch in StreamYards. I've had that happen to me. It'll kick you out.
When you get up from the chair, it kicks you out.
Well, if you try to flip your camera on and your computer's got issues, with a driver or something, it'll knock you out. But he'll be back. So while we're here, here's a free play thing. I'm going to throw this. Remember a few weeks back on the podcast, we talked about that Star Wars Star Cruiser. Oh, wait, there's Mike. He's here.
Here we go. This is Soul 2. So this is about.
Oh yes. I have read those, and I'm pals with Doug. So when you call him Douglas, that's what threw me off. And I'm very visually linked. I link ideas visually. So when I saw the cover, yes, I love the Soul Finder series. I want to work with Doug and Alejandro Mirabal. Yep. I love both of those guys. They're amazing. And yes, absolutely. I think I interviewed.
This is in the back of their book. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually interviewed Doug. I'm a host of a podcast myself called the Creatively Christian Podcast, and I'm the anchor host for that. And I had Doug on the show right after the first book came out. So yes, love those books.
Oh, he killed himself again.
All right, little Chad, you had a question?
Yeah, what was? I was going to bring up. All right, so the Star Wars Star Cruiser, right? That obnoxiously, ridiculously overpriced hotel that they're not able to book out. I'm going to throw out a prediction that by the end of the year, maybe first quarter of next year, the LARPing experience part is going to be the weekend, and they're just going to do regular, bare bones. It's a hotel during the week because I'm putting money on it now because there's not enough people who are going to want to pay for that LARPing experience. So they'll scale it back. They'll only have the actors on in the weekend, and they'll do it and I'm just seeing if other people see where I'm going and thinks that's what Disney's going to end up doing.
Well, I have no idea what you're talking about, Chad, because I don't keep up with the news or current events at all. So
so they're doing a Star Wars themed hotel. In which all the activities and stuff.
It is $6,000 for 2 nights.
What?
It's supposed to be this super immersive experience, but I'm thinking, who's going to spend $6,000 for 2 nights?
I can immerse myself in a tub of ice cream.
I took my wife on a Disney cruise a few years back, right? And for a 7-day Disney cruise around the entire friggin' Caribbean, with all the meals and all that stuff, it was $3,000.
That's crazy.
For crazy. 2 nights at a Star Wars hotel, so you can LARP and hang out with Chewbacca. Maybe.
Well, that's not even the real Chewbacca because Peter Mayhew's dead, and so.
And I mean, let's be honest here. With the gas prices right now, it cost me $6,000 just to drive down there.
Has anyone ever seen? Do you remember when they put out the behind the scenes, when they first did the Star Wars DVDs, they put the Empire in Magic, whatever behind the scenes, and they showed that's when the outtakes or behind the scenes clips when they were filming Star Wars came out, and it's really weird because they have clips of Peter Mayhew delivering Chewbacca's lines on set, and then the actors responding to him before they dub in the Wookiee noises. So you're just you're watching it, and Peter Mayhew, he had a very kind of low English voice, kind of like that, and he's just like, who are them? I don't know why we're here. And it's just like, and it's Chewbacca saying this, like, what is going on?
And have you ever? Were you able to meet Peter before he passed?
Yeah, I was at a convention that he was at a few years back before he left.
Super nice.
He was one
guy.
of the nicest guys you'll ever. Yeah. I mean,
super nice guy, and he literally is Chewbacca. I mean, you see him walk. You know, he walks like Chewie, or Chewie walks like him. I guess would be the way to put it. So yeah,
he has like
was
that kind of
amazing guy.
sideways saunter is what it would. I would be.
Yeah, just the way the arm swing and the way he places his feet. I mean, Chewbacca is Peter Mayhew. So, and he had somewhere in Peter Mayhew's estate is one of my books. He bought my book. So
he was a great guy. Anthony Daniels is actually a really nice guy.
I've never met him.
Yeah,
I'd like to.
I've heard that Ian the Palpatine actor is also really nice. I don't think Mark Hamill's ever showed up, and Harrison Ford hasn't showed up, so I don't have any word on their reputations.
Yeah, no
it's
clue.
funny. Like I know the people I know, like William Shatner used to be a Tool, and somewhere around like the early 90s when he started realizing he could fund his horse ranch by going to conventions, he got a lot happier with doing it. And so he's actually pretty good now, and Shatner is gold on Twitter. I mean, if people aren't following him there, he's hilarious. I think he actually does tweet his own tweets, which is good. So now we're just
imagine not tweeting my own tweets.
I mean,
I love Long Harbor. Yeah, Long Harbor is gorgeous. So beautiful. And so
I really want to read it. It's just there's so much stuff coming out of Iconic that I want to get. I've already spent so much money on them that I'm just like, Long Harbor, it's gonna have to wait.
Yeah, speaking of that, two things to remember real quick. One is, if you guys haven't seen it, Common America is in its last hours for their Kickstarters, and apparently 3 of the Vanilla Ice variant covers are back out. The people who want to get those. So
is one of them the Ninja Wrap? Because if it's not, I'm not buying that. Go Ninja, go Ninja, go.
So I was gonna say, I just know it's Vanilla Ice and Common America singing on stage together, so you can take a look at it and see.
Mike, are you? Do you remember Ninja Turtles too?
Yes.
Okay, good. I was just making sure that wasn't outside of your pop culture wheelhouse.
So Slender.
And also, had to mention as well, because we're talking about Long Harbor. That was when Tim Lim was on our podcast the other week. He mentioned that the way Alejandro Mirabal got so good at that artwork is he did underwater sketching.
Okay.
And I don't know what type he did. I do know because I studied chemical engineering.
He was a diver, and he did underwater sketching. So waterproof everything. And all those things that you see in Long Harbor, they're not works of fiction. They're shit he saw underwater. It's really down there, I promise.
Yeah. There's some very scary things in the water.
Yep. Yeah, but that's a beautiful book, and it's so well written and so well paced, and just an amazing book. So I love it.
Yes.
I would love to work with him on A Tenant's Tale. I'll just say that. So
I'm sorry, man. I have always had a fear of deep water, probably because I drowned when I was 3 years old. So
could be it.
I mean, I was a sailor for 14 years, and I'll tell you right now, every time they had a swim call, I was like, nah, I'll stay right here on this giant metal ship with guns.
I don't want to go down there with those things.
If my foot touches that water, I am stepping down a few rungs on the food chain. Yeah, I like it right up here at the top.
Yep.
I just remember in Jaws when the cold dead doll's eyes run. It's like, okay, I don't ever want to be a sailor. Nope. It's like it ends badly when you end up in the water in the ocean that far out.
It's Itchy Five. What's up, Itchy Five?
Very nice, Itchy Five. Good to see you. I was gonna say we've had so many great people come on. Of course, Star Storyteller has been engaging with us so much, and of course, Miss H, one of the best and really, I think, underrated creators out on the Twitter space.
Absolutely.
She produces so much. She does some great artwork. She's done some artwork pieces for me, in fact. And
Yeah, I'm working on a script for her right now. Actually, it's a comic
nice.
script.
What is that?
It's her Captain Orange series, actually. So,
Yeah, I was gonna say I like Captain Orange.
yeah, it's good stuff. It's good old pulp sci-fi. It's like that 50s, 60s era, awesome Saturday afternoon movie, kind of stuff. I love it.
The only thing I would think of with that is that orange is a villain color, so that's interesting. In terms of the
but oranges are really good for you.
but well, it's there's I always think of Unbreakable when they start talking about like the actual like the high art of comic books.
The primary and secondary colors.
Exactly. Which if you
I
go
hate
back,
that rule.
if you
rule
watch,
out. That
but
rule's
it's
cursed.
but that was I will argue that was Shyamalan's best movie was Unbreakable. I think everybody loves The Sixth Sense because it had the twist and that was great. But the actual best constructed movie is Unbreakable. Like there's stuff that he does framing things. Obviously, you've got Mr. Glass who's wearing villain colors through the whole thing, black and purple, and basically drives a villain car. So they kind of telegraph that whole thing. But there's also the stuff with his what is it? What was Bruce Willis's character's name? The hero, the lead. He's always wearing green, which is a standard hero color. Like there's a lot of things where you can code visually, and you talked about it, Mike, with pattern recognition, and this is again production value, right? These are subconscious things that people who are doing things the right way will do to program you as you're watching it so you can get what you're seeing. And that a lot of like and this is something when you get like a low budget B movie that you used to rent at the video store, this is the kind of stuff that people doing those movies aren't doing, right? They're not taking the time to do production design, to color code and do all that stuff. One of the ones that I didn't even realize did it until I watched it behind the scenes was Home Alone. The first
the Christmas movie.
Yeah, that house is subconsciously designed to make you think Christmas, and it's because if you go back and look at it, the entire theming of the house, it's green tiles, red wallpaper, it's red and green everywhere in that house. And until someone mentions it, you don't even notice because it's not like Christmas stuff, it's just actual green tiles in the kitchen and a red toned wallpaper. But they actually, what the production designers thought about, like, we want this house to subconsciously make everybody just feel like this house is Christmas. And when the people are breaking in, they're trying to break into Christmas. So, it gives you that extra layer of commitment to what Kevin's doing to defend his home. He's defending Christmas. Right. So, and
it's interesting that you mentioned, Shyamalan as well, Little Chad, because he's one of my big inspirations in terms of writing and story structure and directing. So
as long as you don't get so committed to the twist, like the twist is not necessary. There are times for it, but don't overcommit to the twist.
Yeah, I think
that's.
Yeah, I like having the twist if I can work it in, but not to the point where it has to be forced in with a crowbar. Absolutely.
And that was what killed Shyamalan. He's actually a really structurally sound director. There's two things that Shyamalan does that kind of got him. He leaned into the twist element too much. He
overcommitted to the formula that first gave him success.
But he also the director cameos. He's not a great actor, and he kept giving himself. He gave himself more and more important parts.
He's no Quentin Tarantino.
I also really like Signs as a movie too. I think the first three that were mainstream movies for him was Sixth Sense. Then
I think Signs was his best movie.
Signs.
I agree. Signs is my favorite, and I think it's actually one of the most covertly Christian movies out there.
Oh yeah, the whole theme about where Mel Gibson's character has to complete his journey by forgiving.
Well, not only that, but that whole movie, it never references God or Scripture at all. But that whole movie.
No, but it's about a crisis of faith, like the whole thing. And even if you do say, I'm done with God, like, he's still working behind the scenes. Like, the system is still in place.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The providence of God is baked into that movie. Everything that happens in that movie happens because God wants it to happen, and it has to happen exactly that way, or else you don't get out of the problem at the end of the movie. So it's a great picture of the way God's providence works.
If I remember right, the my favorite part was actually the very end scene where you just see him putting the collar back on, and there's no words to it. It's just like the journey is now complete. He has returned,
and the cross is back on the wall.
Yep, it's all done visually, which is perfect. Like you don't have to say like what is it? Show don't tell in story like in movies, comic books, visual mediums. Show don't tell.
You have that picture, use it. But I do want to loop back to Star Storyteller here because she was talking about dominion, what men had dominion over, and the only thing that wasn't mentioned was deep waters. I have some theories about that. If anyone remembers the bloop from back in the day, where I guess back during the World Wars we had a whole bunch of underwater microphones. We were trying to track submarine movement and everything else, and they heard. Yeah, they heard this huge sound, that just covered miles and miles and miles down off the coast of South America. And scientists actually, reviewed this sound, investigated, tried to figure it out. And what they said was, we're unable to identify it, but it's most likely biologic in nature. So it would have had to been created by something huge. And the theory that most people concluded it must have been some kind of an air bladder, which is an organ that underwater sea creatures use to basically control their depth. And the funny thing about that is, like, I start looking up creatures. I'm like, okay, squids don't have that. Whales don't have that. What has an air bladder that can be used to regulate depth? And I'm like, oh, sea snakes have that. Sea snakes off the coast of South America that are apparently ginormous have an air bladder that might make a sound like that. And if you go into Central America, they've got these old pyramids, and there's all these lava tubes that they presume they're magma tubes where volcanic eruptions came up, and they're perfectly cylindrical tubes that just go way deep down into the water. And for some reason, the Aztecs decided to wall those off with bricks. And I'm like, the Aztecs weren't as technologically advanced as we were, but they must have known that a brick wall wouldn't stop lava. So maybe it'd stop.
You're like 2 steps away from Hollow Earth Godzilla theory.
I'm telling you, Leviathan is a thing, and he tunnels through the earth.
Well,
I'm down.
It's
with
also the case too. And by the way, Star Storyteller is now on the stream.
Hello, how are you?
Hey guys. Hey there.
It's a party.
Hi.
Yeah, so this is part of the Freeplay, which is we can bring people on the stream.
Oh my goodness.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it adds to the fun. This is just something new we're trying now that we've got streaming working. So, but yeah, this is
so you may have missed it. Joey over there was explaining how there's giant leviathans in South America.
There's only one. God made 2, and he realized this might be a problem and killed one immediately. So there's one.
But I was going to say, though, it's also interesting from a historical perspective, like the different type of legends that are out there, because one is like, the flood myth is universal. I actually went to that Ark experience in Kentucky. That was, I'll say, when you see the size of the recreated Ark, that thing is huge, right?
Yep.
But like the flood story is universal. But also another nearly universal story is about the dragon, right? Like the Chinese worship the dragon. The dragon is the symbol of the emperor's power. The Aztecs, of course, worshipped Quetzalcoatl, right? Which was the dragon.
No, he's a giant snake with feathers. He's basically the same thing as Leviathan, only above the water instead of under the water.
Except in this case, of course, right, we call Satan the old dragon. So, but it's interesting, like you do see, and it makes you wonder, like, what is the thing? What was the progenitor of that story? Because in some cases they're just universal themes, but in other cases too, like some of these monsters, you do wonder, like, what was it that people saw or experienced that made them say, right, this is the basis of my legend?
Right.
Well, I think that you can go back and look. I mean, I think there's a lot of, and people have talked about this a lot, that if you look at stuff in the Bible, whether it's the flood stories or some of the descriptions of beasts and things like that, there is a lot of cultural crossover across the entire planet, on some of those stories. I think the flood story is the one that that has had a lot of academic research into it, where there's pretty much every culture across the entire planet has the flood story within their mythos. Even Native American in the United States had flood story legends. So when we talk about the universal truths, and personally, as under my articles of faith, I think that it's the reason the rest of the world has those stories is because it happened out of that way. So but I think that when you look at cultural, like, there's so much commonality that there's definitely got to be, and this is something where I think it supports it, and this is something where Christian storytellers could do a better job again of tying things together. There's universal common themes for a reason, and these universal common mythoses are developed probably because there was, when you get back to the origin point, we share the same memories genetically or historically of what was going on. Use that as your springboard. Like, make sure that you get people in the door and you can talk about it. And then once you are giving them a good story about that, say, hey, these are the themes we're talking about, and this is where those themes come from. Like, hey, now that you're more interested, instead of going to Wikipedia on for Harry Potter stuff, come look at the actual origin point.
Yes, indeed. And I'm now thinking of two things. We're talking about universal components. One about Noah, but another one too is even about the creation itself. What was interesting, and this is a podcast and actually lecture series called Reasonable Faith. This is by a guy named William Lane Craig, who does a lot of apologetics work. One of the things he pointed out is, if you look at Genesis 1 and 2 relative to all the other like origin stories around them, that was a case where that was one time that the Jewish people had something that was very different from the others. So the kind of general origin of the universe story is that the universe is basically infinitely old. It was a disorganized chaos, and then you would have one of the gods come in and start organizing it. And what happened was with the Genesis story, that they had the doctrine of creatio ex nihilo, which means it was created out of nothing. So there was no chaos, there was no past, there was a definitive point in time. And what's interesting is, like, that actually changes kind of the role of who God is. And if you actually read it as a kind of statement of like, hey, this is why we are different, it actually adds something to the story that you don't get just from reading it on its own. Another interesting one too, and this goes back to the part for Noah, and this wasn't until I went to that Ark Museum, which I'll also say they had some pretty interesting things there, is how I'll put it. But one point they made there that I had not thought of before is that the word used for ark historically was the same word used for sarcophagus. And so this is the idea that it's actually a device that was symbolizing death, was actually being passed through this judgment that annihilated everything else. And then they came through to a new world on the other side. And it's interesting because then you go to the Passover, and again, you have the blood of the lamb. So again, you are walking into this house that is now covered in death, when the actual death is wiping out everything around you. And then you come out of it, and then, Israel's set free. And what's funny is both of these actually then point forward to the Christian story, which is, Christ through the death and resurrection, you enter into that death. Everyone else is being annihilated. And then through that death and resurrection, you come out saved. And so it's interesting, you actually see 3 times.
That's interesting. I haven't thought about that. So you're always more into those things, knee deep in the academics. I'm over here like, let's get more C.S. Lewis and stuff.
Yeah, but I mean,
and I find random things, and I'm like, I'm gonna go do a whole bunch of research and come to a ridiculous conclusion.
South American Leviathan. That's your.
I'm telling you, he's down there. He's somewhere down there.
I was gonna say, so speaking of like crazy things at the art museum, like it was particularly their take on the dinosaurs. So it was the idea that they brought dinosaurs onto the ark with them. And now my silly idea there is, what if we did a Noah comic of like, we have like Noah as like a dinosaur rider,
like the Dino Riders cartoon from the late 80s, like
exactly. Noah. And then like the villain of that story is some kind of basically like worshiping the Leviathan, and like he's gonna like ride a T-Rex to like eat the animals getting on the ark.
I mean, as long as the main goal of the story is to try and catch the unicorns and get them on the ark, and it ends in failure, I'm cool with it.
I was gonna say those were the ones that got eaten by the T-Rex, dude. All the other ones made it, but not that.
That reminds me of the Far Side cartoon of Noah on the ark, and you see the hooves sticking up, and Noah's chiding the lions about, bad lions. They obviously ate the unicorns. So anyway. All right, guys, I'm gonna have to head out. I don't know if that's okay or not. But
no, that's fine.
Oh yeah, it is.
Sticking. So
yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, it's been a great time.
Appreciate you having me on, and I'm not sure what happened to Yvonne, but I'll definitely let you guys know on Twitter. I'll check on him. And
that's good. Yeah. Hopefully he didn't watch The Grudge and go to a hotel.
Yes, I definitely hope that. So love to come back on sometime, and when you guys want to talk more, just let me know. And thanks so much for the opportunity.
All right. Well,
great
thanks for coming.
Absolutely. See you guys. See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Cool.
But we still have another 30 minutes of free play, dang it.
Yes, we do. So also, Claire, I see the Star Storyteller channel. Tell us about that.
Oh gosh, I don't really have anything right now. I'm on a super secret project that, as an artist, but I can't say more than that because we're not ready yet. So there's that. But once I know more, I'll let you guys know. Yeah. Well, do we want to talk about Leviathan? Because I heard something interesting on like Christian TikTok about something about the Bible specifically.
I would love to hear.
Leviathan is the embodiment of envy and first to punish those who are guilty of that sin.
Well, actually, it's about talking about the dominion. How Adam says he had dominion over the sky and he had dominion over the land, but it doesn't say anything about the ocean. And it's kind of this weird, mysterious thing about oceans that is like there's kind of a theory that there wasn't oceans to begin with. And so then it was a place where all this stuff is stored. And it kind of makes sense because there's only we've barely scratched the surface of the ocean. So there could be anything down there. There could be all kinds of weirdness. It was just a really interesting kind of breakdown.
I can really get behind the idea that the Marianas Trench is God's junk drawer of Earth, where he's just like, oh, just put it down there.
Basically, or that's where the demonic lives, and then Atlantis is actually this where all the Nephilim went, because it said they would be before the flood and after the flood. So where'd they go? Atlantis. We know it. No. Sorry, I get kind of in the weird weeds, but I try to keep it, scripturally on point too. But
I mean, if you really dig into it too, just with for example, the potential for colossal squids, the things that live way deep down like that,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
their metabolism is so slow that they could potentially live for hundreds or more years. I mean,
Yep.
it's completely alien to us. We know more about space than we do our own oceans.
My point. Exactly.
You're basically giving the intro to Sequest DSV from the 90s. I really, you're Roy Scheider right now. That's good stuff.
Well, I don't know because, well, I'm millennial. I technically couldn't know about that, but I was homeschooled and we only had like VHS. We didn't have cable.
At least it was, I thought you were about to go like we only had a beta, and that would have been really, really bad.
Indeed. I was going to say no for millennial because I'm 85. So.
Well, I'm 88, so that's why.
Oh my gosh, you both sound in such good health.
Yeah.
85 and 88. Good job.
Oh dear.
Making, you're out there on the internets doing good stuff. Good.
Well,
good for you.
Using technology, understanding it.
I was going to say, because like the late 80s, of course, like that, you really do, like we were in the transition period of like, I remember when the dial-up modems were coming out and like you had the 2400 baud modem.
Wait,
yeah.
Vinny, what year are you?
81. So
Okay, wait, I'm not the oldest one here.
No.
No.
I am the official, I believe, first year of the millennial generation according to the official specs.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
contend
but we can all subscribe to
there's
the
a micro-
subcategory of
yeah.
Zennial because millennials are supposed to have grown up with all this new tech, internet, all that crap, and I'm like, I didn't grow up with it. I had it in high school.
Yeah, exactly. You had it in high school, and like it was the point when the internet was still an escape. You could still surf the web because there weren't that many sites because you were still having to hand code it all.
Yeah, corporations wanted nothing to do with it.
Oh, you mean like with GeoCities and all those things where people spend
GeoCities?
money to have their own fanfics up on the internet?
Oh yeah, that's also I
MySpace
remember in high school when
page.
fanfiction.net came out.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Can we
It
just
was
talk
great
about how quickly it devolved into just like I was like, oh, fan fiction, we'll have fun. Oh, this is all just people getting together. That's interesting. Like,
Yeah, it was the birth of shipping.
Oh yes. Yes.
shipping has done more to ruin fan
Shipping
fiction.
is awful. It's absolutely awful.
Well, like my comment below, Raylos don't pay for those expensive role play excuses.
Unless they would pay if they were like if there was a cabin where Ray and like,
yes,
that's what they would pay for, and that's the
yes,
weird
they
part.
would.
Oh,
or shirtless Raylo. Maybe they'll make an. Okay, I promise I'll be good. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say when you mentioned it about Raylo, like I felt like what was that?
You mean Ray Skywalker?
The sequel movies were themselves like fan fiction given like absurd amounts of money.
Yes, and it's so sad because there's so many fanfics that are well and beyond, sometimes better than their actual content, and they did not receive that. That is just a crime, an absolutely criminal. I would agree.
I was gonna say, and when you mentioned that too, because this is kind of like my observation about like what fan fiction really is in the whole like creative process. Is that for the writer, it's really a way to see like how readers are perceiving your characters and your stories because they're going to take those and then adapt them in their own particular way of doing it. And it was also funny too because like I've got my comic Petro Patriot and it already has its first fan fiction even before issue 1 is out. And that's
Wow.
Miss H's daughter, because what happens, like Miss H was doing an art piece for me and her daughter's like, I'm concerned about this one character because like the people she's working for are doing bad things and they're telling her lies and like we need to save her somehow. And so she like wrote a story about that and I'm thinking it's like actually it's good that she's feeling that way about that character because that's what I want readers to feel about that character. So So it's like those are the things like you can kind of use that to keep your ear to the ground to see like what your fans are really feeling. But the thing is that the other reason it's called fan fiction is because it's really people kind of take their own like fantasy ideas and apply it to your story. And like I said, it's good to see how people perceive it. Sometimes though, people just take it and like, I just want to use someone else's characters and I just want to write my own totally unrelated and self-validating story. And that does not make for a good motion picture film.
I think if you really want to understand what fan fiction is when it goes bad, is realize that 50 Shades of Grey started as like a Twilight fan fiction.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
And Masters of the Universe. Don't forget, it was Twilight and Masters of the Universe.
Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah. So that's how and that's what you actually. This is like bad fan fiction is 50 Shades of Grey, and that's it. Once I heard that that's how 50 Shades of Grey started, I was like, that makes complete sense. It 100% makes sense.
I would also say something else though about it, and this is something Jordan Peterson pointed out, is that because they've pushed down like healthy masculine and biblical masculinity so much that it came out in this very like twisted way, because they had said, oh no, you can't be a toxic male, you can't do this, and you know, women have this desire to be wanted and loved and all this stuff, and so then it became out this weird twisted like thing that just poofed out like that. And it's like, because they've tapped down not letting men be men, not doing all this, it all came out in this weirdness. And you're like, what is this? And it's like, this is what you get for tamping it down. It's going to come out in an awkward way.
Because what's happening is, again, right, like I think really the point of creativity is it's discovering truth. And you mentioned Jordan Peterson. He had I've seen some clips of him out on YouTube explaining that the artist takes out of the chaos, out of the abstract, like they bring an idea into something you can conceive, right?
Yeah.
And so what's happening is, because the truth was destroyed in those people, like they're literally starting over from zero, almost like when a child tries to like draw a picture of the family, like and it's cute, but like it's so like messy and crude. Like that's what they're doing, except it's themes of masculinity and femininity. Like they can't.
It is literally worse than that. What we're getting is, I mean, I am a man. There are hormones in my body that compel me to be the way that a man should be. But society has taken the lid and put it on top of the pressure cooker and said, no, you can't be that way. Now, some of us will find ways to vent that, but a great many will feel trapped. And eventually, the pressure cooker is going to explode. And that's why you get these just...
That's why you get Tumblr
out into the outfield reactions to it.
Tumblr, yeah.
Like you get let people be people. Like I'm, damn it, I am a chimpanzee full of snakes. you gotta let me be a chimpanzee full of snakes.
Okay, now it reminds me of how he broke down romance novels and like the type of heroes you can be: pirate, lawyer, werewolf, and what was the other one? Surgeon. And those were the ones that were there, and everyone's just busting up laughing. And it's like, no, that's a high dominant sort of thing. And my own, like, the project I mentioned before is someone else's, but my own personal one is going to feature someone who actually is a very masculine, very trad, I would say, sort of a character who has more of the quieter, stoic kind of aspects to him, and kind of, and it's so interesting like how much feminists hate like stoicism in men, and I'm like, I wonder why that is. What is this about? And it's because it's strength. It's not responding to women emotionally manipulating men. That's terrifying because you can't control that, because they're so screwed up, and either they've endured something bad, and then it's
like it's everything that we're like, it's the formula that they came up with that works perfectly to establish our role in society. Like Stoicism is the shit. It's awesome. And I don't know why we're drifting away from it.
Yeah, and I think part of it is, again, it is the destruction of truth, and we're kind of going through an era of rediscovery. And as we're talking about this, of course, to show my own title a little bit, I will say that's actually one of the central themes of the story. That right, it starts off in this dystopia, right, in the year 2070, civilization is completely stalled, and the world has been kind of turned into this combination. I call it corporate socialism. So it's like part socialist nightmare and part corporate hellscape.
Ooh.
And but the thing is that one of the themes among the villains is how they actively disrupt normal human interactions. And one of them, and you can tell some of these do play into current year stuff, but one that was kind of funny is there's a concept called greeting words. It's like, hey, you don't say hello to each other. Each person has their own greeting word, right? And the person who teaches this, they're like, my greeting word is machinga. So when you talk to me, you have to say machinga. And something like, because if you think about like the greeting is the most simple way of people like just authenticating with each other and saying like, okay, are you threatening or not threatening? Do you know English or not? Right? Do you know basic social interactions or not? Right. And all that's wrapped up in just saying, hi, how are you? Good. How are you? Right. And so we're going to come in and like even twist something as simple as that. And the idea is from that state of total ignorance of even the most basic things. One, can people figure out like, hey, I'm living a lie? And two, how do you begin to rediscover all the traditions, and how do you begin to reestablish all of those basic truths? Like that's like one of the underlying themes of the story, but it's in the form of this kind of these science themed superheroes, the center of them, of course, being Petro Patriot, the mad scientist, as he is trying to build his lab and build his like crazy village out in the middle of nowhere. And then at the same time, right, saving people in this city where, again, it's just it's just fun thinking of like, okay, how can I take this and just make people do it wrong? It's so fun to write.
That is a really cool concept. Especially thinking about how or even like if you speak the same language, how that's really important. Or do you have the same basic value system? Because you can have a diverse, like that's why I think capitalism ends up working a little bit better, because even if you don't speak the same language, if you can exchange goods and services, even if you can't say it, like point at something and then offer someone $10 or something, you can at least do that, and it's a lot easier instead of trying to do all this other stuff. It's pretty interesting.
Exactly. That in the case of capitalism or also libertarianism, it's the idea like at some level everybody has at least something in common, right? Even if you have if culturally you're different, even if right, some of your ideas are different, it's like, well, you know, we all still need to eat, we all still need electricity, right? We all still need some of these other things. It's like, hey, if we can work out ways to like do this between each other, then like we still have like some bond that we can work out. And I think also too, this is where, of course, the internet and also creativity gets interesting, is you do see all of these little communities forming up now around all the independent titles. And again, it's people who may be very different in other ways can still find things that are in common. And you can see, in a sense, like connections getting built. Whereas, and this is really, for me, like what I think is so wrong about socialism and about progressive ideas is they're like, no, like we have to dictate from the top down. These are the ideas you will have. And it's pretty much, you're either monolithically in it or you're thrown out.
Or outside, or you're trying to maintain the outsider status while still telling people what to do. It's like, pick a lane. Either, well, like for example, like during the 80s you had the punks, but they didn't care that they were not a part of society. They just did their thing. They're like, screw you, we're gonna do whatever the heck we want to do. But now everybody colors their hair and tries to like embrace all this stuff, but then they still want the acceptance. And it's like, no, you don't get to be a basic broad and be punk. It's not cool. Sorry.
Yeah, it's and I was gonna say, and that was interesting too, is like the various like nonconformist movements. What's funny is there actually is a certain type of conformity within those, but it's just we're like, hey, like as long as we all agree on this one set of rules, like we can say, okay, like this is our community. But then, right, it's just those set of rules are intentionally different than whatever they perceived as the mainstream rules because, right, like that was how they knew, like this is where we are and this is where everybody else is, and that's how we know that we belong.
Right.
And I think too, even there, it was the book Straw and Towns. They talk about this in terms of city building, but I think it applies here too. That in traditional cities, what happens is 90% of the wealth stays in like highly predictable institutions, and then 10% more or less gets gambled on like the latest art district or the latest project. Because the thing is, like, if that one gamble pays off, like it transforms everything, like it doubles everything. But if it fails, then they still have that base, right? And I can actually see a little bit of that with people too, like the whole concept of the black sheep. Like the black sheep is actually the explorer to say, like, can we go find the new truth that like we don't know yet? And a lot of them will fail, but then the ones who succeed, right, like it changes everything.
They bring something back to the tribe. There's something about, and I think that's kind of where a lot of the problems with like these new classes of people that they're creating, like whether it's not to get into it, but kind of like if you want to recreate society, you have to bring something to the table. Like the entrepreneur brings like something risky and different, but that if it works, then they've got something like venture capitalism or that kind of. No, although I don't know if that gets socialist. I don't know that well enough, but that they're exploring, they're trying to figure out, okay, well, if you do this, what happens here, and like building out the technology. But if you're trying to recreate, you have to bring something to the table, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's weird because maybe this is as a Christian, I've noticed that how they're trying to recreate religious experiences and feelings and that sort of thing is really odd because they're doing it in a very secular way. Well, that's to be expected with Marxism. You know, that's basically, he was a rich kid pissed at his dad who was a rabbi, you know, had a total Jewish complex. And yeah.
Oh, Karl Marx, yeah.
Yeah. And so then he's like, I'm mad at daddy, so I'm going to make this philosophy that kills millions of people.
Yeah. I'll tell you.
Hold on. Speaking of that, I'm going to share something because I think I can share my screen, right? And
there is an ability to do that, yeah.
Hold on. I'm going to.
Let's see if somebody else kills themselves during the stream.
Yeah, I mean, I've blown myself up on that.
Dead connection.
We're joking. We're joking. There's no actual death. Sorry.
No, we're talking about like forcing my computer to restart and such.
All the metaphor.
Okay, right. I see it. I'm adding it to the stream. Here we go.
All right, so this isn't. You remember we talked about you're talking about like the experience. This is an ad they're showing for that Star Cruiser hotel. There's no. I'm not going to put the audio on. But we'll just look. You got these two women, right? Look, they've decided they're joining the First Order. They're basically becoming space fascists.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the experience. Look. There's Chewbacca. Let's arrest him.
Like, yes, because they'd arrest him.
Look how happy they are. Like this is what they paid. Like in effect, they was
paid
$6,000 to be able to be fascist and arrest Chewbacca. And
you can go down to your local gaming store right now and for about $30 pick up a D20 book and play Star Wars from the comfort of your own home and pretend to be whoever you want.
But what I'm getting at, and this is something that are, that we were just talking about, like we're creating experiences, right? So we're creating an experience to basically teach them to want to be space Karens.
Space Karens, yes.
That sounds like a concept for a book right there.
Like, Karens of the First Order. I mean, it's like
it would be.
Although what's funny is when you mention that, because that is actually one of the things that I am trying to do with Petra Patriot is that, and this goes into a little bit of my own background. I think I've mentioned before, like I've got family over in China. I've been there a number of times, and as well over here through my church, I've just known a lot of international students, and particularly Chinese students. And through that, I've gotten to know some people who just quite frankly have connections to the party over there, or have faced the brunt of some bad policies over there. And one of the things that I came away with from that is that the only reason it works is it is the Karens of the order. It is the people who they like the fact that the system works because then it gives them meeting that they don't have otherwise. It gives them the chance to boss people around that they don't have otherwise. It's all of the kind of like middle level people who, at least up until the anti-corruption campaign officially, it was the things like, hey, like we can go eat out and then like turn the receipts back in at the state-owned company and like just cash in that way, right? It was the things like, hey, like I'm having trouble getting a promotion, but like I can report this other guy to the secret police and like get him thrown under the bus. He spends 6 months like proving his innocence, and then I can take his place. It's that type of thing of, it is the people who are willing to cheat each other. And it doesn't take that many of them actually, that actually keeps the whole thing going. And is also just like what makes communism suck so much, because that is the person who gets empowered.
Kind of reminds you of mass Karens.
Yeah. No, I mean, actually, so imagine if mass Karens had authority over everything, and that is communism.
Oh,
that is practically what it is.
We need to go full Wolverines for sure. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that was an excellent Red Dawn reference. Fantastic.
Yes.
I'm serious.
But it's, like we need to, I'm going to have to start, how you, my wife does bird watching. And so she has those like guides for like being able to pick out like the different types of birds. Well, I think we need a guidebook now for the types of Karen. Like we're going to have a mask Karen. We're going to have a fully operational, like, mid-level bureaucrat Karen.
I was gonna say, for your mid-level bureaucrat Karen, I got a story for you. All right.
The eco Karen.
Yeah, the eco Karen
who reports you for stupid stuff.
How dare you? How dare you?
How dare you? Hey, that's something I got to work in there somehow.
So we'll call that one the Greta model.
No, Greta is a product of child abuse. She doesn't quite count. She deserves like 0.5 of our sympathies.
I mean, she was.
Yeah.
It is very obvious she was pushed into this by her parents, but I mean, at this point, she's old enough where she could say, "No, I don't want to do this," and it seems like she's enjoying herself just fine and dandy. So.
Well,
yeah.
Well, how would you listen? Obviously, she's kind of on the spectrum, from what we can tell, and just really malnourished. Like, what is it? They put her on vegan something or what? I don't know. Like, I know if that's been
again at this point, if she wanted a steak, she could go out and get one.
I think that, Mike, what was the product that you had that was offered to common?
We're really starting to describe my character Grace here. So yeah, this is one particular character, and I know I on Twitter I've posted some pictures of her lately, and this is a girl named Grace. She's a junior political officer in this regime. Mm-hmm. And what it is like, in terms of character, and actually, and again, because like it is a lot of my commentary on just like what I observed about about socialism and also even about like some of the crazy stuff in American politics. I've been on some campaigns and internal party stuff.
Ooh.
But anyway, so the thing for Grace is, in terms of character, she's actually pure. She wants to do the right thing. She doesn't have like any ulterior motives. But the thing is, because she is a product of the regime, right? Like everything that she promotes that she's convinced is good, well, it's really not. And what the product, as he was asking about, was called Soylon. And so all I'm saying is the main ingredient is deepest lore, right? We will explore more about it later. But the two food products, Soylon and Sawbread. Soylon is the protein, which is, it squeaks when you eat it. It's a protein rubber. And Sawbread is a reference to coal bread from the dystopian novel Paris in the 20th century. It was written actually in the 1850s, predicting what 1960 would look like. And it was at the birth of synthetic chemistry. Someone's like, oh, like we could synthesize bread out of coal. And so I took that and I thought about my own like green technology experience with my PhD. And I'm like, oh, like we could extract the various like cellulose, hemicellulose from sawdust and convert that over to the compounds needed to make bread. So we're going to call that saw bread.
Well, that's better than poop. They've actually done that. The Japanese have.
I'm wondering like what that process looks like. So hopefully like they grew plants out of it or something. But
I don't want to know, to be honest.
They made a mistake. They actually did. I think they're really like, we're really worried about the meat thing, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Hey, I gotta head out, you guys. Thank you for having me on. I gotta get going though.
Yeah, well, we're on the second hour now, so it is about time. But hey, thank you for coming on, though.
That was
a
fun.
fun free play.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, so I think that'll be for our format, though. It'll just be like this is free talk, and we'll just see who wants to come on.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. You all have a great night.
Oh, you too.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye. Oh, man. Soylon and Sawbread, though.
I'm just still fathoming the giant South American Leviathans coming up through lava tubes. I feel like that's a really good concept you should work out.
I mean, I have.
It seems like you've spent a lot of time thinking about it.
This may be a whole thing I've come up with as part of my angel story. So
I'm thinking so far. So what have we created on this show so far? We've created lava tube Leviathans. We created the maidens of mayhem.
I would say that Joey would say that God created the lava tube Leviathans. And
that's true.
He's just writing about it.
We're just chronicling it.
I have just discovered the truth, and I'm now chronicling it in a work of fiction.
And then we've got the Mother of Madness remake as Maidens of Mayhem. We've got the Soylon. Man, like, there's a lot of good ideas that come out of this podcast, dude.
I mean, I would like to think so since it's our podcast, but I think
we'll see if any of those actually sell, though.
Yeah, we've got great. I mean, 50 Shades of Grey sold, so maybe we got to do a little more shipping.
More shipping. I really did not know that was a fan fiction, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe you didn't know that. Yeah, it was a Twilight fan fiction that they just changed the names of the characters and dropped the vampire thing, right?
Yeah, it's like
instead of vampire is a billionaire.
What did they used to say in Game of Thrones? It is known. Yeah, it is known that was a fanfic. You now looking back at it, you're like, yeah, that's about the quality of writing I expect from it.
But I remember the point of it though was it's ultimately derives back to that fantasy of what is it, the mousy secretary can still just like absolutely enthrall the billionaire or whatever it is.
Just like, oh look, it's the completely blendable, forgettable, mousy woman. I'm a billionaire who can have anything. I'm intrigued by you.
of like, what is it? You call them the harem animes of like the guy is just an average guy, not particularly manly or special.
Whoa, let's
Yet
not.
he's got so many
Let's
women throwing themselves at him.
Whoa.
Let's not
That's
knock
not-
anime. No.
No.
Me and Joey
A
just
whole
did like
conversation coming down the pipe about anime,
yeah.
and you,
Yes.
sir.
We just recorded
I
like a
just-
2-hour side episode about anime that could be classified as a harem one. So, if you want to speak broadly,
I know. And although the thing is that I'm sure for some of those though, like they actually do decent storytelling. That's the other difference out of it as well.
I mean, High School DxD has fantastic storytelling. What are you talking about?
No, but what about
Fight me, bro. Come at me about that.
What about The Devil is a Part-Timer? You've been watching that.
I'm just into that, and it's fantastic. Thank you for telling me that one. I'm enjoying like my favorite part is the sincere, like proud work ethic he has to his McDonald's job.
Yep, he is really devoted. It's WickDonald's though, isn't it? WickDonald's?
Or like McDonald's or something like weird.
Because I was gonna say, because you got to do that one deviation, but I think McDonald's is the Common America one, because that was issue 1.
Gotcha.
I was
She had to
really
be a
happy to
sponsor.
see the Florida Girl Common America crossover.
Oh, the Merriweather
that
crossover,
was
yeah.
sweet.
Yep.
And the conclusion of it was great too. Like you don't expect the heroine to like go to jail.
You do when it's Florida Girl.
No, I guess that's true. That is true.
I'm gonna be honest. I kind of I wouldn't mind seeing a full iconic comics Florida Girl collection like story. I think that would be awesome.
I think so, and I know too. I think there's like 5 fan Common America characters now. Because what is it? John Hansen, that's the John Padras guy. He's got Common Quartz, Common Sandstorm. I think it's like Image Monk has Common Shamrock. There's a Common Taiwan. And then like I did like a crossover for one of my characters as a Common Racer. It would be interesting if the fans got together and created their own subcomic. Because if we got 5 characters, we can do the 5-man band trope. But the only question is that I know most of the guys who have done those are artists. So like they just like, hey, this is a cool concept. And like it's also like a way to be a fan of the series. So I don't know if they've actually done any character development. But it would be interesting if those guys actually like wanted to like lend their characters to that type of a project.
I suppose.
I don't know. At least I think it'd be cool.
I think that's a good question to think about as we start wrapping up for the week. This was another fun live episode.
It was.
Yes, indeed.
And for the format too. I mean, I like the format of switching over to Freeplay and then also even like bringing other people on.
Yep.
So I think we'll jump off the broadcast at this point, and we'll start tamping it down for the week.
Yep. And thus ends another episode of the Ascendant Art Podcast.
Don't worry about South American underwater leviathans tunneling through the earth to destroy you.
Yeah.
We built a brick wall
For
for
the
that.
earth-bending Leviathan, he's coming for you.
Yes.
On that note, bye everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.